When I was 21 years old, I worked a maintenance and custodial job at the nearby daycare just down the block. My responsibilities included taking out the trash, moving and setting up furniture for special events, performing preventative maintenance, organizing supplies, cleaning and maintaining the facility, caring for equipment, and overall making sure the place was safe, which also meant reporting any suspicious activity that could lead to child abuse or mistreatment. Some days I would be the one opening and closing the facility. It was a pretty tough job since it was just me and one older guy who was basically my boss. Most of the time I was the one locking up the building because he usually left earlier. The daycare itself was part of the grounds that also had a Catholic school and church, though I'm fairly certain the daycare welcomed anyone regardless of religion. The older worker, who I'll simply call B, was leaving early this particular day. I think it was a Friday because he always left early on Fridays. He gave me a list of tasks to finish before cleaning up. Start with the usual classroom cleaning, then pack up the remaining Thanksgiving decorations from the classrooms into the crates, bring those downstairs to the basement, and after that start bringing the Christmas crates upstairs. These crates were filled with decorations for the entire building, including the lobby, hallways, and classrooms. The child care staff would handle putting the decorations up, but my job was to clean everything and carry the crates up and down the stairs. Now that Thanksgiving had passed, it was time to bring out the Christmas decorations. By then, all the kids and staff had left. It was dark outside, probably between 6 and 7 in the evening. I was the only one left in the building, so I made sure all the doors were locked while continuing my work. I headed down to the basement, which was mostly used for storage. Since the weather was cold and outdoor playtime was over, all the courtyard toys were kept down there for the season. This included, but wasn't limited to, plastic slides and those little toy cars that kids moved with their feet. The basement had a hallway that passed by the boiler room and the water heaters, and at the end of the hall was the main storage room. That storage room always gave off a creepy vibe, mostly because of its poor lighting, or the lack of it. There was no direct overhead light down there. The only light came from 2 dim bulbs in the corners and a small light from the hallway. The basement ceiling wasn't very high either. I had to crouch slightly in certain spots to avoid hitting my head. It felt like a strange mix between a basement and a crawl space, but since I'm 6'3", this probably wasn't a problem for shorter people. There were small basement windows that made the place brighter during the day. But obviously, by now it was dark, so I relied on a flashlight. I carried the Thanksgiving crates down one by one and left them near the front of the basement, mostly because I was feeling lazy and wanted to get home and start my weekend. As I was dragging one of the Christmas crates up the stairs and through the hallway, I suddenly heard a child's voice and then laughing. It was very muffled, but I knew I definitely heard something. I stopped pushing the crate and started checking around. I went into every classroom, the indoor playroom, the art room, and even the bathrooms, every place I could think of. There were no kids anywhere. But I kept hearing that faint, muffled voice now and then. The one spot I hadn't checked yet was the basement. I slowly walked back to the basement door and stared down the stairs, waiting. I heard another sound coming from down there. It hit me that a kid might have wandered down there, so I ran down the stairs, shouting, "Who's down there?" thinking maybe a child snuck in. I got to the bottom and hurried along the hallway to the storage room. I saw one of the toy cars roll for about a second before stopping. It was like someone had just pushed it. I stood frozen, looking around the room, but there weren't any kids that could have moved that car. I called out, "Anyone down here?" several times, but the place was dead silent. The quiet felt overwhelming. I even started checking inside the boxes and containers, thinking maybe a kid was hiding. But as I searched, I realized there was no way a child could have closed these boxes or containers from the inside. At that moment, I felt completely alone, but also like I wasn't. It's hard to explain. Then, right behind me, I heard something plastic drop onto the floor. There wasn't any draft in that basement. I didn't even turn around to look. I just ran straight upstairs without glancing back. I paused at the top of the stairs, and that's when I heard what sounded like a child's whisper coming from below. I immediately slammed the door shut. I didn't know what else to do, so I called Bob. He told me that if I thought there was a child down there, I had to call the police. The frightening part was that I really didn't think it was a child, but I still dialed 911 because I couldn't just leave without knowing for sure. And I was right. There were no kids down there. When the police arrived and searched the basement with me, all they found were the boxes and containers full of supplies and decorations. I also couldn't locate anything on the floor that could have made the plastic sound I heard. Since there was nowhere left to hide and no reports of any missing kids, the police couldn't do anything except leave. I could tell they thought I'd wasted their time, but I was too shaken to care about being embarrassed over calling them. I quit the job just before Christmas. I never wanted to step foot in that basement again.